kind of be like, oh, it's part of my daily routine. I'm gonna watch Rusted now. I'm gonna watch Rusted typology. I'm gonna indulge a bit because I have some free time away from work. Let me just munch on some fucking chips. You're gonna do that. Don't fucking do that. Yo, what's Gucci, guys? So today we're gonna be talking about Enneagram 9, breaking down the subtypes and really going over the core of this subtype. Obviously, decided to go 9/1 because we all sleep on fucking 9s, just like 9 sleep on us. If you're a 9 and you're watching this, remember you're fucking based. So what is sloth? It can be taken literally, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. The laziness in this context is more so resistance to change and their internal contact, right? Getting in touch with their internal world. That is what they really have strong resistance to. That's what they're numbing themselves against. It's a process of conforming to the present situation, to the present moment, preferring to maintain that. Avoidance of the internal contact is a consequence of having this fear of change. And with all of this said, their self-awareness is usually dog shit. I mean, let's be honest here. 9s, for like all the really gut types, and 8s especially too, struggle with self-awareness. It's hard to have self-insight when all you do is really trying to numb it or trying to escape it in some type of way, right? So if you're a 9 core, you have to remember, right? You will struggle with this, having that fucking self-insight, having that self-awareness. Try to tap into it. Ask your friends, ask your family. Maybe they might point out certain behaviors about you that are negative, you neglecting yourself in some type of way. You can avoid it. You can sit down and think about it, right? Now, the Enneagram trap is called searching. 9 cores constantly think they will solve their problems, all of their problems, in a more concrete, grounded, and earthly world. Carrying out certain actions and behaviors that really help them in short term. And as a result of all of this, they forget the importance of, establishing drastic change. Now, the Enneagram fixation would be indolence. Now, I don't know what the indolence means, but it's a good starting point. They're always trying to compensate with the external world in an accommodating way. It could be looking for this inertia in objects, in people, in certain habits, in actions, sensations, work. It's a way to stop existing. It's a way of almost to cease to exist. In a nutshell, we call that, I'm sorry to say, escapism, right? Now, escapism is a bitch. 7s do that. 7s and 9s, you will see different methods that are very, very blatant and very obvious. They will do anything to maintain what is normal, what they know as normal, even if it's harmful to them, making no effort or little effort to reflect on what's inside. Now, there are some quick ways to differentiate the subtypes, right? With the social 9, you have inertia in the social sphere, manifested in comfort in pleasing and serving others, serving the group, serving society, being useful to them. With the sexual 9, there is inertia in the relationships. They can feel complete as long as their existence and preferences disappear within the partner. Conservation 9, which has the habitual inertia attached to their home, the way their food is done, their way of living, their routine. They don't like to be disturbed, right? So it's that kind of stereotype of a Sigma male, grind-set Sigma badass, silent stoic badass, who, if you mess with him, he's gonna break your spine. And that's very much kind of conservation 9. Now let's dive deeper and really explore the subtypes. So social subtype, which is called the belonging, and obviously here they're the counter type. The inertia is found in the social sphere. They can disappear and they can forget about themselves when they're serving others, serving groups, communities, society at large. Feeling useful to people is what makes sense to them. Their altruism can almost be exaggerated to the point where they forget themselves, to help people, to please people, neglecting themselves for the sake of other people. Differing from the other subtypes, they're actually much more hardworking, and they don't really represent sloth that well. Another thing is, this subtype has a certain sense of justice, standing up against authorities that might be harmful, authorities they consider unjust, and they almost use themselves as a tool to make this hierarchy fair. SO9 at the end of the day is a shy individual. They don't really enjoy the hyper energy. They're not as really energetic as people think. They don't want to be in the center of attention. None of that shit. They use their complacency to neglect themselves and their real needs. Now, this subtype can be confused with self-preservation 4. You can see a lot of that in some anime and some kind of things like that. Someone who really doesn't know 8s much, they might think, okay, it's a social 8. They might confuse maybe a social 8 with a social 9. Might happen, right? Now let's go to the sexual subtype, which is called symbiosis, aka the symbiote. aka venom, aka... yeah. The subtype suffers from too many nuances. Their inertia relies on personal relationships. Their personality fuses within the other, where they forget themselves, they forget their problems by being exactly what their partner needs. When not in touch with anyone, the S69 can have a tendency to go into extremes, being organized to being disorganized, talkative as fuck to shy as a motherfucker. They have all or nothing coping mechanism. They tend to be very limbic and extremely paranoid about being in touch with that internal world. This type can be very self-demanding and they receive criticism very poorly. It can fuck them up. It can give them PTSD, or as some might call it, complex PTSD, if it's maybe caused by a slight insult rather than maybe going to war and getting your fucking limbs chopped the fuck off. Now, around people, they tend to be very nice, very docile people, very friendly, accommodating. I know a sexual 9, super fucking chill guy. Super chill guy, super fucking nice and pleasant. Like, there's absolutely no reason to bash him. When I see my fucking friend kind of going heavy on him, you know, he kind of goes LSC heavy hand on his motherfucking ass. Even I'm kind of telling him, yo, you need to fucking chill with that. Like, he's nice. He's just a pleasant, nice guy. No need to push him that far with his performance. But yeah, they tend to have very low self-love outside of relationships, right? They look for this love, self-love, try to probably replicate it in relationships, in people. They use their actions to please others, to forget themselves. This type can be confused for sexual 3. From my personal experience, right, what I've observed people coming to me, generally, oftentimes, many people thinking they're 9s came out to be social 4s. So if you're a 4 core, right, it can happen that you will confuse yourself with this subtype. Sexual 3s can be confused with this subtype, but also, in my opinion, social 4s. Now we have the Big Daddy Dom, aka the conservation subtype, the masculine fucking badass. That's all it is, right? The Sigma male, Clint Eastwood, I'ma smack you in your face with my dick if you kind of cross certain boundaries. Obviously, women love this subtype, and rightfully so. Now, it's the least warm subtype. The conservation inertia is a distraction to their real needs and their necessities. Some necessities require change, some necessities require will. So the self-preservation 9 will run away from it with their daily habits, routines, their work, their food, their gaming, their reading, whatever it might be, some kind of activity that tends to be concrete and sensorical in nature, grounded. Now, it's easier for this subtype to isolate themselves from people, to kind of get away from people rather than look into their real needs, to look into their, to self-reflect into their real problems. It's much easier to do that. Now, generally, they tend to be quite reserved individuals, but they can get reactive if their peace is disturbed. Now, SP9 are also very non-hierarchical. They either respect and go along with authority, or don't feel bothered at all by the hierarchy at any place and environment. They can be seen as rude, grumpy, cold, sarcastic, kind of a fucking asshole. They are very practical and they like to keep things very simple and mundane. They use their sensorical distractions to avoid themselves and their feelings, their internal world, their internal emotional world. Now, this subtype, in my opinion, tends to be, obviously, not even fucking my opinion, tends to be confused with self-preservation 8, SP8, right? The most common mistype, and it's a solid mistype. Now, that's it for today. And again, guys, if you're a 9 core watching this shit, stop fucking coping when it comes to like your little habits. You fucking probably watching this video, maybe having a snack or two, being comfortable, right? Kind of be like, oh, it's part of my daily routine. I'm gonna watch Rusted now. I'm gonna watch Rusted typology. I'm gonna indulge a bit because I have some free time away from work. Let me just munch on some fucking chips. You're gonna do that. Don't fucking do that. Don't. In fact, don't watch this video because it's probably part of your fucking routine to numb yourself, which is you just playing into your bad habits and unhealthy habits. It's a fucking vicious cycle that you should not have to endure. Anyway, bye.